Hey, welcome to the Leadership Loading Podcast. It's Jason McLaren here with Rusty Reynolds. We're going to get talking about what he's doing up there in Frisco, Texas. Rusty's a lawyer in the Frisco, Texas area, but I'll let him get started with it. So, Rusty, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Jason, for having me. I'm excited to be here with you and your audience.
Definitely. So, yeah, let's get into it. Tell me about your, growing up and then what led you to want to become a lawyer. We'll get into the lawyer part per se, but what growing up led you to get on that path?
Well, I grew up in Kerrville, Texas, and my mother's a nurse, and my father was a licensed nursing home operator, and they worked in nursing homes, and they owned and operated a nursing home in Kerrville. And so, as long as I can remember, I was walking the halls and interacting with residents and nurses and all the different departments that would support and serve the resident or patient population at that nursing home. And my first job was in the kitchen, where I was so small I had to stand on a milk cart just to wash dishes. And so I would wash dishes and then help bring the trays to the residents who couldn't come through the line. And then later in high school, I started working in a hospital. And my first job in the hospital was in central supply purchasing as what they call a runner. And the runner would go run for this or that. At that time, we had a central area where all the IVs and supplies were for providing patient care. And I would deliver those supplies to all the different departments and units. And if they were out of something, I would then run and go get it for them. And the director of the emergency room, the head nurse, noticed me and said, "Hey, look, you ought to come down here and work in ER registration." So I did start doing that as well. And on my first shift, we had a major truck wreck with fatality, and that was my first fly on the wall view of trauma care that you would see like on the Pit or ER or Grey's Anatomy. And that was the first time I saw, my first time seeing somebody pass before my eyes. And so that was really eye widening and, you know, shocking and just really adrenaline pumping to be able to see all that in action. And then after that, I decided I wanted to stay in healthcare. I wasn't interested in becoming a doctor, but I wanted to stay in the administration piece. So I went to Southwest Texas, now called Texas State University, and got my degree in hospital administration and started working for a hospital in San Antonio as their manager of admissions and dismissals.
Nice. And I know people that listen often will know that I work in healthcare full time. And so definitely know where you're coming from there. And I'm in healthcare administration myself. But so in that time, you probably learn a lot, especially being in supply chain, about logistics and then par levels and making sure that each unit had what they needed to have. So kind of going off your background in healthcare, what led that to you wanting to start your own business as a lawyer?
Well, that's a great question because this was in the early '90s. Okay, and if you remember, some of your audience members may remember that that's when managed care was making an introduction into healthcare. And so the term HMO became familiar. Total quality management, where the insurance companies were now starting to influence. Instead of just paying for healthcare, they wanted to start influencing medical decision making and what was covered and what wasn't. And they called that managed care through HMOs and PPOs. And that resulted in a major depression or recession in the healthcare industry. Hospitals started to close. And so it became very risky trying to look for, compete for jobs at that time in hospital administration or healthcare administration because there were more people than there were jobs. And so I decided, look, if I'm going to if I saw myself, if I'm going to make it, I need to get a job where I have a little bit more security. So I wanted to be able to have a vocation or profession where I could hang out my shingle, okay, and have my own business. And so that's when I decided to, instead of going to graduate school as a hospital administration or business administration, I decided to go to law school and get my license as an attorney. So that way I could always have a way to have my own business.
Yeah, I think a lot of people coming out of the military or transitioning, and they're looking at that too. Um, Myself, I was a firefighter in the Air Force, and then when I got out, I thought, well, that's what I'm going to do when I get out. And it didn't work out that way. So when I went to school, I had to kind of pivot. And I always tell people, don't pigeonhole yourself. Just don't take the same job over and over, and don't get a degree exactly in your career field, but maybe get something that's more broad. So that's what I've done. I've got my graduate degree, my master's in emergency management, and then I'm working on my doctorate in business because once again, I don't want to pigeonhole myself as the safety and emergency management guy. So I think that's
Well,
good.
that is. So what you're describing is, hedging your bets, being diverse, being flexible, adaptable. And so that's what I wanted to do with the law degree is uh, be able to hedge my bets in terms of have the opportunity to be adaptable and diverse. Because if you put all your eggs in one basket, if you put all your interest and your experience in one basket, it's going to be difficult if there's going to be a problem in that particular vocation.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially like you were talking about earlier with healthcare having, a slump back then. Of course, now we're begging people to come work at the hospital, um, but there are other industries. The fire service was the same way for a while. They couldn't get people. The police department right now, they can't get anybody to come sign up. So yeah, just having the different skins on the wall, like they say, can help you be more diverse and then get out there and spread your wings.
And if you look at transferable skills, also diversity and transferable skills. I think folks the reason why we hire militaries because I view veterans as having an excellent background and experience with standards, okay, and being able to operate and recognize with standards because in my line of work in representing people who have been harmed by the negligence of another person or another corporation, whether it be a physician, a hospital, a trucking company, a business that's got a hidden dangerous conditions on their premises. We have to look for what is the standard of care, what should have happened, and then what happened, and how did that failure and what happened cause the harm. In the military, they're very familiar with root cause analysis. They're very familiar with standing operating procedures, and those things are really helpful in the legal world, especially if you're representing the injured party who's been injured due to the failure of the standard in any given you know environment.
Yeah, I just shared something on LinkedIn the other day about that. It was more like why military personnel make good facility managers because you're like you said, we have to read the NFPA codes and the building codes, and we're used to reading that kind of stuff. Being from the military, you're used to reading standards and regulations, and so the odd way they write it, you're used to reading all that and interpreting it. So yeah, definitely
Yeah,
can.
safety matters, and you're always looking out for not only yourself, but your group of people that you're associated with, whether it be your troop, your platoon, your department. You got to be looking out for dangerous conditions. You got to be looking out ahead and figuring out, okay, what can happen, and so being familiar with standards, being familiar with risk assessment, that's very important in what we do.
Awesome. So you started your firm about 10 years ago. How has it been? How have you guys been successful? I know that the types of cases you guys take are pretty competitive. So how have you been successful at cornering the market and getting those types of cases?
Very good question. the what sets us apart and how we were able to grow, and as I talk to people who found us and were considering us and trusting us with their family, their loved one, their story, their case, is that we don't really operate as what you might see the advertising lawyers. We don't have a mill system where you have a quote unquote case manager who is not an attorney. Think of like a nurse practitioner or a PA or a nurse or an MA, a medical assistant, who's doing all of the work for the patient, and you barely get to see the doctor. In our case, the attorney's involved from the day one. And so you have access to the attorney on your case. They're working hand in hand with the legal assistant or the paralegal in your case. And so it's kind of a white glove type system, like you might see these in healthcare. You see concierge doctors cropping up, okay, and starting businesses to be able to say, hey, look, we're going to charge a little bit more, but you're going to get a full hour's worth of our time. We're going to be focused in on your care and your preventative health care and trying to help keep you healthy and figuring out how to treat what's going on. And we're going to be right there with you. Now, our fees aren't more, they're the same as other attorneys, but we're providing that concierge level service. The the other thing we did was we went to a place where there wasn't as much competition. So instead of staying in Dallas, where I spent 15 years with my mentor, learning how to be a personal injury lawyer for medical malpractice, for car wreck, for truck wreck, for premise liability, for product liability, we moved up to Frisco before there were a whole lot of attorneys up here doing this matter. And then we also recognized that that Google reviews was going to play a um, big role in attracting business. And so you can see some companies with a lot of reviews. Some of them you might think are the manufactured. Every one of our reviews is from a real client and from real satisfaction. And as many people that people hate to do reviews, but as many as you ask to do reviews that are satisfied, maybe 1 out of 10 will end up doing it. Okay. But over the last 10 years, we've gotten about 98 reviews that have helped us stay um, relevant in Google searches in this area. So I would say the location that we chose and the style of representation played a big role in being able to continue operating it and be successful still 10 years from the date that we hung out our shingle here in Frisco.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think a lot of organizations are going to Google reviews now. I know in healthcare they use different systems, but I think everyone's familiar with Google, and like you said, it's a public thing that everybody can see it. And you don't have to go hunt down the ratings. And a lot of healthcare places kind of run these like no-name rating systems that you had to actually go and dig up the ratings. So now everybody's kind of moving to Google, and there's actually like organizations that will help you maintain your Google rating out there now.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants one, and so I think everybody is inundated with having to do it. So it's even getting harder to get those kinds of reviews. But once you get into 10 years, you've built up enough clientele. Now we are an episodic business, okay, kind of like an ER. An ER is going to see patients that they call episodic, meaning you see them once and you don't have a continued relationship with them. We see a client for their case, and then we generally won't see them again. So, but those clients can help refer family or friends or associates that are in a wreck. And so if you get enough of that episodic volume, then you're going to get referrals from clients. So that's another way that we get referrals. And then of course, from other attorneys. Other attorneys refer us business as well. So we talked about diversity earlier. So you try to look at how can I get business? Let's try to have business from various different areas, Google or internet marketing. And then we have other attorneys, and then we have existing clients, just like hospitals are going to want to have, referral sources from managed care contracts, PPOs. You're going to have those captured audiences, but you're also going to have the walk-ins through the ER. Those are two different sources, right? And then, of course, you have referrals if you're a referral source from other hospitals or doctors' offices.
Yeah, in marketing we call it top of funnel. So you want to have as many as possible, but usually at least like 5 to 7 referral sources for your business. So I know, like you said, in the law industry, you've got other lawyers, and you've got the however else you're doing it. But so if you're starting a business, you want to make sure you started to get those funnel sources built out early on, so that you're feeding your funnel. Because there's a quick marketing lesson for those that don't know. You got those 7 sources that come in, and then that trickles down to maybe 5 people that you get in your office. That trickles down to maybe 3 people that are interested, and then you get one purchase every 7 people. So
It's
so
a
kind of
numbers game, right?
rudimentary marketing lesson there. But
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I can only imagine with law that it's even harder as a quote unquote sell to because like you said, it's you know depending on what's going on. So it's not like people don't need a lawyer all the time.
If we get to talk with a person, we usually have a high conversion rate, and the reason why I think it is because of the experience that we had in ER registration. Okay. We in hospitals, when you're dealing with people who are coming into the hospital, you're dealing with people who are at their worst. They're ill. They have no margin for patience. They're frustrated. Somebody has betrayed them, and by failing to do what was right, responsible, and reasonable, and caused an injury. And so we're used to seeing that kind of person as a patient and coming into the ER, coming into the hospital. And so it seemed like it's just been very similar to a patient or a client coming in who's been injured. They're injured, meaning they have a condition, an illness, and they need help, and they don't know how to navigate what's happened to them. Similar to a person coming into the ER to the hospital. So we've transferred those skills, which I would think might be also similar to the paramilitary, that you're dealing with people who are scared, and if you're trying to get them from point A to point B, if you're dealing with civilians, that type of training can translate also into the legal industry if you're through with your service and you want to become a legal assistant or a paralegal, or if you want to go to law school.
Definitely lots of ways people can network and diversify after they separate. And like you said, I wasn't even thinking about like paralegals and that sort of thing, all the other ancillary jobs in law firms. Um,
They pay
yeah,
very well, and they're very satisfying because, again, you're getting the satisfaction of help working a case, understanding this fact pattern. Okay, we got the facts of what happened. Then we got to learn what the standard of care, what should have happened, the root cause analysis. And so, as a paralegal or legal assistant, you're involved. You're a member of that team that's doing that, and you're also spending a lot of time with the client who's been injured and being able to help hold their hand and walk them through this process.
definitely. All right, Rusty. For new leaders out there, what would be your one tip for maybe someone stepping in their first leadership role or starting their first business? As far as leadership goes, what would be your tip for them on how to lead their teams?
Okay, I've got two tips that come to mind. Okay. One is we've already touched on it, which is have a sense of diversity in your mix. Okay, in terms of how you're going to get business or referrals for what you're doing. Two, have a sense of urgency. And I think that's another thing I think military have is that when you're on a mission, you've got a sense of urgency to complete that mission. And in business, you have to have a sense of urgency to start your business, to get to that next level, to get the each aspect of what's going to make up your service or your product to be able to sell or serve another industry. Okay, so I think a sense of urgency, uh, and making sure you have diversity in your referral sources, in your customer base.
Definitely. All right. Well, Rusty, how can people get a hold of you guys if they want to get a hold of you?
Okay. Of course, we're in Frisco, Texas. You can just Google my name and should be able to find me. We have a website that's www.rrlfirm.com. Our phone number is 214-891-6606. And along that tip for diversity, I wanted to share one more thing is the third thing I think, or a dovetail off that diversity is we didn't just stick with medical malpractice. We have medical malpractice, we have car wreck, we have truck wreck, we have premise liability, product liability. So we have 5 things that we work on, okay? That if one area is slugging, another one's coming through. And so it's generally not going to have all 5 of them that are going to be sluggish, okay? You're going to have 2, at least 2 that are humming along, okay? So that's another basis for why I think diversity is so important.
Yeah, 100%. I think some of the industries right now are seeing that crunch because they pigeonholed themselves and now they're struggling. Yeah.
But if anybody, I mean, in addition to if anybody knows anybody who's got a claim, if anybody in your audience wants more one-on-one conversation about their skill sets, I'm happy to talk with them. Okay, and so they can easily reach out to me just to talk about more information if they want to learn about paralegal, legal assistant, or the steps to go to law school as I saw it and experienced it. Okay.
Awesome. I'll put your links in the show notes, and then that way people can just click and connect with you, and then we'll go from there. Thanks, Rusty, for coming on the show.
You bet. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Jason.
There are thousands of leadership and management podcasts to choose from. We're glad you chose the Leadership Loading Podcast, a Go Heroes production. If you'd like to support Go Heroes Inc., visit www.goheroes.org. And with that, it's time to wrap up today's show. Thank you so much for listening. We sincerely hope you liked it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with your family and friends. Let's all grow together. Thanks for listening to the Leadership Loading Podcast. Leadership Inspired.